Hi, it's Miley 青山まいりです。今日はちょっとゼミの話であったり、早稲田大学で何を研究しているかとかを話していきたいと思いますけど、少し私にとって日本語でそういうことを話すのがチャレンジングなので、今日の動画は英語でやらせていただきます。So in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about what I study in the School of Political Science and Economics. I'm going to talk to you guys about my field of study. So let's get right to it. First of all, I'm in the School of Political Science and Economics at WASEDA University. So my major is in global political economy. So that's kind of like you take half political science and half economics and you get both your degrees in political science and economics. So the first year, I was kind of like just feeling, what do I like better? Economics, politics, like international relations. I didn't really know what I was really interested in. I originally went to Bali in high school to study like sustainable living and like green energy and stuff. So I've always been interested in like those social aspects, and I think political science had more of that into, the study. So I decided to join a seminar, or what's called Zemi in Japan, where I study comparative politics right now. I'm gonna talk to you guys about like a little detail of what I've studied this semester. So my field of study is comparative politics, and my focus is on Eastern Europe, I guess, just because I find that area really cool. Like their background, like politically and economically, has been really interesting to me. And even though I've never been to Europe, I just thought like it might be really interesting to research about that. And another field I'm interested in is in like SDGs, like sustainable development. So I kind of combined those two areas that I'm interested in. And so I'm looking at two countries, like comparing their politics, their country background, and everything, and seeing how they're performing in the SDGs. So the SDGs are like 17 goals that the United Nations like came up with like a bunch of different countries. I think if you just Google it up, you might know, like you might get better information than from my mouth. I'm kind of looking at their different political background, how they are like as a country, and comparing it to see how it has reflected how they perform in the SDGs. This year I focused on Czech, or Czecho, or I don't really know how you pronounce it, Czech and Bulgaria. So they're both Eastern European countries. They have different backgrounds, but they were both communist countries, and they had to like become independent, and then here they are now. So I kind of looked at how they progressed towards the SDGs and like a sustainable future. So what I found was that Czech was really highly ranked in the rankings, and Bulgaria was pretty low, like one of the worst ones in the EU, and I wanted to see why that was the case. So I kind of looked at it from the background of how they're doing managing COVID. And the way they're managing COVID wasn't different, but how went backsliding in the goal of the 17 goals. For example, like poverty, or like no hunger, or equality and stuff. Like those things kind of crashed down for Bulgaria, while Czech, it didn't really change as much as before COVID and after COVID. You can see how easily these countries could backslide into like a worse, how they could backslide into how they were before. And so even though if they are trying their best to like achieve some of these 17 goals, like because of other factors that happen in the country, like they might just like backslide right back in, and like you can see that they aren't sustainable. So to find what the difference was, I kind of looked at characteristics of like a communist country, and that was kind of like corruption. And so Czech actually has a good system to prevent corruption, where like their police and prosecutors are separated, so like they can kind of look over each other to prevent those bribes and corruption. So in communist countries, bribes and corruptions are quite the social norm. It kind of left that kind of aspect in Bulgaria, and so they are still corrupt today. Those corruptions include like little small bribes, like, oh, get my son in the school, or like up to like using funds and like effectiveness of policies. especially when the corruption affects the effectiveness of policies. That's when like SDGs aren't maintained or like they're not progressing. So if we look at the people at risk of poverty, it's not that high in either of those countries, like rather it's pretty low in the EU. But then if we look at material deprivation, which is like the inability to afford basic resources and services, Bulgaria is the worst in the EU. This kind of shows that they're really extremely poor and they're not doing well. These factors kind of come in and it makes them easier to backslide into poverty or like can't get like the medical needs they need for like COVID or just anything in general. I think these factors come into play when attaining SDGs, and the inequality in income distribution in the population is also very bad in Bulgaria, and they have the highest Gini coefficient in the EU. It's very bad. And Czech actually has like one of the best. These kind of factors, even though they used to be communist countries, like things like these, like the policymakers and like the government, like how corrupt they are, really comes into effect when looking at things like SDGs. Also like just how well they're like doing with COVID, like how much impact how COVID's gonna impact the countries. Yeah, like these things like corruption, income, and inequality, they come into like a big role. A lot of people think, or a lot of scholars think, that the SDGs 1 through 4, which is no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, and quality education, is what really makes countries sustainable and how important these 4 SDGs are to countries to become more developed and more sustainable. So if we compare these for the 2 countries, like Czech and Bulgaria, they have different numbers for these 4 goals, and that is really why these countries show a difference in the SDGs. I feel like when I talk to you guys about this kind of stuff, it sounds like it really doesn't have to do much with politics. So the background of it really does. Like if you go into detail, like if you research, you can find a lot of articles about like politics in these countries. And if you compare them, you can find the differences and see how it might directly affect the SDGs or, you know, how they're doing as a country. And I find that really interesting. Like I love comparative politics because you can put in like your favorite, I don't know, subject, what you're interested in, and then compare the countries, like compare the politics of these countries, and it makes sense. And you're like, oh my god, that's why. Like you can just go and compare Japan and Korea and you can see why they're doing better in these things, why they're not doing better in these things, and like a lot of things like politically or like the country as a whole has answers, and if you look into them, it's really cool. And you can study politics at the same time study what you're interested in. So yeah, that's kind of what I study. It's pretty cool. I first thought I wasn't too interested in politics. I thought I'd be more interested in econ, but turns out I like politics better just because like, you know, you have COVID going on, like you see that direct effect of these like political aspects, and that just finds it more like, I mean, same with econ, but like it just makes more sense to me. And yeah, I love reading these articles, like it's really fun. Like I started reading a bunch of articles on like journals. Yeah, it has really changed how I see things, and I understand the news better. Yeah, I love politics right now much more than econ, but you know, you kind of need both sometimes. I recommend comparative politics, especially if you're not sure what you want to study like specifically in politics or econ, just because like you can get another topic and tie it into comparative politics, and you know, you have a whole research you could do, and it's really interesting. I think I'm gonna continue studying this, but I might change from SDGs to like medical applications, and just because I used to be interested in med and I was hoping I'd get into pre-med, but I don't know if I'm gonna do that now. Yeah, I think I'm gonna find a topic in medicine and tie it into comparative politics. I'm not really sure what, but I think that's gonna be my thesis. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed me talking about the research I did this year. I didn't really go into detail, so if you want to know more, you can just DM me on Instagram. I'll like tell you a lot about Czech and Bulgaria and SDGs and stuff. So yeah, let me know if you're interested. And thank you for watching my video. I just kind of blabbed out what I know on top of my mind. It might have not made sense to you guys, but I hope it did. Thank you for watching. Bye! Oh yeah, so please subscribe, like, comment, whatever you want. Go check out my Insta. Yeah, thank you for watching. Bye! I tried to run and hide, but you